Where are you and are you prioritizing some self-care, some talk? Where's your support? Do you go out with friends ever? Like we need adult conversation. We need to be in conversation with those that aren't in the same work world we are. Well, hi there. Welcome to Intuition, Your Success Compass. I am doing a series where the last episode of the month is going to be business or executive focus, basically taking the experience I have of being one, but also working with clients. It's primarily my client base and offering up some of the learnings that I have with them, they have with me, and offering it as a one time a month so that there's a variety of topics that we talk about here and that it can be beneficial. Now, I actually believe that running our personal lives and our non-income producing lives can run like a business too. And the same skill sets are used in both. And often when I'm working with a company and somebody presents to me a resume or an application, and the person might not have all the business background, I want to know what their personal life looks like. I want to know what are their hobbies. I want to know, do they have kids? Do they volunteer for a rescue? What have they participated in, like a restore project or for Humanity, things like that, because our skills are transferable. And oftentimes people will look over, even when they're in their own company, someone who is superbly aligned for the position that they're offering or the help that they need, but they're only looking at a paper qualification. And this is missing a humongous opportunity because you just can't teach common sense. I'm convinced that it's not possible. You can give guidelines, you can give structure, you can create policies and procedures, but common sense, not always handed out in even doses on the other side when we come in from a soul level to a human level. And I think it's important to see where people who might not have the common sense, maybe they have skill sets elsewhere. But I feel like there is a transference in a very positive way rather than psychological transference of skill sets that we even don't give ourselves credit for. And that when we look at our work world can translate into our private life. And then when we look at our private life can translate into the workplace, as well as becoming a fully integrated person and understanding that wherever I go, there I am. Like I bring me wherever I'm going. So it's a heck of a lot less work if I'm not putting on a work hat or a home hat or a volunteer hat or any of that. Personally, in my life, what you see is what you get. I don't have much of a change between my personal life and my work life because I decided a long time ago it was exhausting. And if I am going to show up in integrity in my work life, well, don't I want to show up in integrity in my personal life? And that's actually where I was missing the boat. I was much more adept at showing up in my professional life with transparency and honesty and openness than I was in my personal life. And some of that being exhausted, but some of it was my own protectiveness. And once I realized that, felt a little bad for where I could have been more open in my personal life and most especially with my kids. And then I decided, oh goodness, that is just so much work. I don't want to do it anymore. So this doesn't always work well in personal relationships because I can place a boundary much easier because it's been practiced in my professional life because you have to if you run a business or you will be out of business. And I've applied it to my personal life. It helps so much. So even though the last episode of the month will be business focused, if you're willing to listen through, there are going to be some some helpful tools and some guidance and likely a sharing of where I foobarred and then had to figure things out, but also where that has benefited myself or a client or, in practice, how I understood or come to some lessons. Won't that be fun? So in this episode, we're talking about business frustration, or the other F word, because I am a 12-year-old at heart sometimes, and I like a good bad pun or alliteration. I guess it would be an alliteration in this case. So some of the frustration of being, I'm speaking of a position where you are, perhaps in charge. You are the solopreneur, the entrepreneur, you're running a small team, you're leading a large team. The frustrations that happen because of this, and then some methods, some tools to shift that frustration into an energy that can be productive. Because it does no good to just talk about it. If we're not going to discuss things and then look for a shift or a solution, I don't know why we're talking about it. It's like I have a rule of thumb when I'm talking with someone that you have about 5 minutes to complain, because everybody needs to vent. Everybody needs to have their words, their innermost feelings heard and felt. And depending on the topic, I mean, that can be longer if we're talking about grieving, because you're not just going to cut somebody off. But if somebody's complaining, and often the energy of frustration or the experience and emotion of frustration is, I think, wanting or aligning with a solution, but not knowing how to get there. So obviously you feel frustrated. Think of little kids when they're trying to get the square toy in the round hole in that little sorting device. The frustration, they get mad and then they throw it. I don't know about you, but I still have experienced that some days. And when you're guiding others, or when you have to make decisions, or you're leading a business, that frustration can be there, because the very aspect of having a business is being visionary, or leading a team. You have to practice some visionary skills, and it can be frustrating when all the pieces don't line up. So I want to talk about some of those. Well, I'm going to talk about some of those because that's what I said the topic was. And then some of the tools that I have used or that I've suggested to my client to then help diminish the frustration. Or I think all emotions are valid, important. So we're not going to say, I'm never going to feel frustrated, because you will. And it's just silly to think that you won't. So the frustration that can come about, I think, in business primarily is balancing the work and the personal life. And again, for myself, I know this has been and continues to be a challenge. I will say the last 3 or 4 years, I feel like I have absolutely nailed this. And it's mostly because of my hyper-focused intention to do that. Little caveat here. Each time we're talking about balance, we're actually talking about integration. If you try to balance everything, there will always be something that's out of balance. So I think as soon as I made that decision to switch from balancing my work personal life to integrating my work personal life, I felt this relief, and I feel there was less resistance to the whole process. And what that looked like was understanding that sometimes there's going to be a need to focus more on a personal life. Like when we were moving in November, I took 4 or 5 days away from work, worked harder than I worked in my business, so that I didn't have to feel torn. Like I could completely focus on moving and getting us settled in here during the day. And then we could do the weekend thing, I could get to a place where I could then focus on my work the next week. I ever move again, that's going to be 2 weeks because 1 week was not enough because everything takes longer than it's going to take. So the balance is a great idea or way to get there. Like, I want balance. Fantastic. Great. Let's talk about that. But what we really want to talk about is integrate. And when you do that, you understand that sometimes the personal life is going to take priority and sometimes the business life is going to take priority. And all the time, there needs to be cutoff of the business life and integration, understanding a transition to your personal life. And it's challenging. It's very challenging, especially with technology that keeps us way too connected. So it's hard to have that disconnect unless you consciously set the choice. And that's one thing that I would recommend. And I actually ask of most of my clients if, okay, where's the turnoff? Where's the stop communicating? Because I say this all the time, unless you are a trauma surgeon on call, very rarely do we have to respond to those moments and treat everything like it's an emergency. And I am very clear that I am not a therapist. So if this is an emergency, I will obviously get you the help or help to connect you with your therapist or a trauma center or something along those lines, crisis center. That's not for me to actually get in there and do. So understanding the boundaries in my own work. So you would have to set this up for yourself, depending on what your work is. And if that's a case of, like, say you have, I'm thinking about, a disaster response team or something along those lines. Well, you can't always be the point person. How are you going to delegate? Who are you going to assign that takes over so you can have moments where you aren't in charge, where your brain can defrag and it can balance and it can breathe? We need this. And I don't know if you have kids, but if you've ever been that parent that had to go to work and your kid wasn't feeling good, it works the other way. You have a hard time focusing because you're worried about your kiddo, but yet you had to attend to whatever was going on. So when there's an integration, and if you happen to be the person who leads the team and you're able to communicate this to your people, you will have a loyalty beyond what you've ever seen. And in the United States, we suck at this. We absolutely suck at families being priorities. So if you are in a position where you can create that change or you own the business, then you absolutely have to do that. I have had people who work for me be apologetic for the fact that they didn't, back to me in an email right away, or the newsletter didn't get did or whatever it was, and because their family member was sick or they had to help or something. And I'm like, I don't care. No one is going to stop breathing because the newsletter didn't get there this one time, at Wednesday at 9 a.m. I want to know you're okay, because then that leads to, I think, a calmer response. And if you know I'm okay with that, don't take advantage of it, because I will know and I will speak it. And we will have a little chat. But the idea of your employee or your contractor or even your collaborator knowing that you're not going to go off the handle because they had to attend to something leads to a more cohesive work environment. And I also want that little bit of forgiveness too, that there might be something that you don't know about that I'm attending to. And as long as I'm communicating with you that that thing I said I was going to get to you this morning is not going to happen. It's going to be tomorrow. You trust that that person will follow up with that. But this little bit of flexibility is what I'm talking about in the integration process. And if you're someone who can lead in that way, I think would bring about a healing to the mismanagement that we've been in for decades. And what you can do for this is look at your time management. I know for myself, I batch record these. Okay. So I batch record my podcast because then I know on one day I will be here and that's my only obligation as far as work goes. I don't make appointments. I don't do anything until I have talked to you for about 4 hours. But then I also know that a month's worth of content is in the works. And that's how I balance, because then I structure it in a way where the next day is not filled with a lot of talking or a lot of thought process going on. It's more filled with action. So book work and setting up new bundles to put up or things like that, right? So being proactive in this work can dissipate the frustration so much when you set aside and prioritize effectively managing your time, understanding that things always take longer. I was in the middle of batch recording and we got a delivery for dog fencing that I had to sign for that was supposed to come yesterday. So when I set this up in the scheduling, that was all understood. And then it got delayed, so you take a break, you go make a smoothie, you sign. The guy was so nice. And you get the stuff dropped where you want it to be dropped because that's a lot of concrete sitting out there that I do not want to have to move more than once. So prioritizing and blending in your whole life that we can make a whole experience out of this will also allow you to show up in business clean. It's like if you ever experienced the phenomenon of doing your laundry, washing, drying, folding, putting away all at once, you feel like a superhero, don't you? That's the concept we're talking about. And back to what I said originally, if I was interviewing someone and they said something along those lines, I'd be like, oh, this is a good project manager. This is somebody who understands the completion feeling is just as important as setting it up and strategizing, because so often caught in the strategy conversation. My goodness, are we ever moving? So think about your own life right now and how it could use some attention to the integration process and what that might look like. Can you take a walk at lunchtime so that you're giving to yourself, you're rebooting, you're grounding, and then you're returning to your work with a clearer head? It goes a long way. And that's why it was number one on my list, because when that is out of sync, I feel like there's an underlying energy that just sabotages your effectiveness, and that frustration will become evident and you lose your stuffing. Most people want to do. It will also help is in the second thing that causes frustration is decision-making fatigue. We have a thing in our home. Mike knows on Friday nights that I would love to go for a walk. I would even do a workout if you're planning the workout. If you're telling me this is what we're going to do, because by Friday evening, my decision-making head is exhausted and it only wants to do things that are a little bit on autopilot. I still want to be present in my life, but I want to decompress. There's a lot of trauma work in what I do. And there's a lot of thinking and there's a lot of strategizing and there's a lot of planning. And by Friday night, I am toast, gluten-free, please, because my tummy doesn't like the other stuff. So knowing that and seeing that pattern over the years, I used to judge myself for it. And then I realized, no, this is how I show up in all of my life, excited to meet my clients, excited to do the work. So excited that it's podcast recording day. And because I've already set up the systems and the structures that allow me to decompress, to release the idea that I have to make any kind of decision. In this household, Friday night is usually nacho because I've also planned most of the meals for the week because that's how I'm learning that my brain works best. It's true. If you spend an hour on Sunday planning everything out the rest of the week, I can't stand that question of what's for dinner and not stand it. And mostly because I rarely have a preference. So I have helped my decision making fatigue by making the menu on Sunday night. And sometimes they move around, but as long as I know that's there and I have all the ingredients, I usually make my recipes from what's already in the house rather than something I have to go get, because that's also fun. And then it uses whatever's in the cupboard. But then I don't have to think on, the nights, because in this house, we rarely get to dinner before 8 o'clock. So if I can prep it and even make it ahead of time, that feels like a win to me. And that helps my decision-making fatigue because I don't have to hear the question. I don't have to feel pressurized to come up with an answer. So what this also does is, because my head is not overloaded, any decisions I do have to make during the week, there's plenty of computer space up there. There's plenty of memory to be accessed because I recognize that I have set myself up to succeed with these things and that it can be fun. Adulting can be fun. I'm here to say it. And it also helps me feel and look forward to Friday, because that's usually the night that we pick a fun movie to watch, or if we've not turned on the TV all week, we'll watch the couple series that we have and kind of stream them. A couple people that we watch that are hiking the Appalachian Trail or things like that. We already know that that's Friday night. It might sound boring to some, and I can get that that's not your thing. But to know that's already figured out is a blessing. And then it might be that I grab a book and I read while Mike does a puzzle. That's the type of excitement that's going on in this house. But it's also why we love our life so much, because it doesn't have to be hard. Making a decision when you're an adult happens thousands of times a day. So you can enhance your decision-making process and prevent burnout by having some of these things already figured out for you. And I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but I'm encouraging you to create the systems that will support you in all of this. Hey there, fabulous souls. I wanted to take a minute and invite you to a live interactive session every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at Vicki Baird Coaching. I'll be answering questions, diving into thought-provoking discussions, and forming deep connections with each and every one of you in the time that allows. I believe the true connection happens when we come together, when we share our thoughts, and then we can inspire one another. I know I live well by example and to mentor up, and that's what I'd like to create. This event is a golden opportunity for us to connect on a personal level and create some memories. Whether you're a fan of my podcast or someone curious to learn more, this live event is for you. It's a space where we can share ideas, explore new perspectives, and grow together with respect and humor. Save the date and join me Wednesdays at 5 p.m. at Vicki Baird Coaching on YouTube, and let's create an unforgettable experience filled with laughter, insights, and genuine connection. I'll see you there. So you are able to be in that South Compass, right? You're able to be in this human experience and really enjoy it so that you can be open to the opportunities that come along. Because if you are always in reactive mode, it is very difficult to manifest something that will be enjoyable and that will be fun. And to that point, I make no business decisions on Saturday. None. I don't even in my head own a business on Saturday. It is house day. It is hiking day. It's time with family day. It's things that don't require any type of thought process around a business. No S corp in this household on Saturdays. And again, my body has learned to depend on, and I can feel the relief. If you're someone, maybe you'll relate to this. If you're someone who works meetings, right? They're scheduled. And that's by virtue how coaching works, right? You have to set up the meeting. The idea that there's no schedule for me on a Saturday feels expansive. It used to feel terrifying as hell to not have a plan or a schedule until I started relaxing around that a couple of years ago and realizing don't want to just be a calendar watcher. I want to be experiential in my life. So what that does is it helps me to be fresh when I show up in my business. And when I suggest this to clients, I can feel the resistance because especially in running your own business, there's the idea that you have to push, keep going, keep thinking, doing all that. That is counterproductive. Energetically, you will push away what it is that you want to attract to you if you are always on, always thinking. I mean, don't you have some of your best thoughts in the shower? And that's because, well, the water is energy conducting. But it's also because you've done it so many times, you know how to do it without thinking, and it opens up space for brilliance to come through. And there's going to be decisions that you have to make in the rest of your life. So it's best to recognize that for your brain, there needs to be downtime. There needs to be no thought time, I call it. I used to call it stupid head, and I realized that's not nice. So no downtime, or rather downtime, no thought, flowing from situation to situation, which can also bring about great adventures. Some of the best trails we've ever found is because we had no real thought about where we were going, what we were doing. We were just going to head in a direction and see what happens. And yeah, absolutely, that bugs my planner head. But this is also part of expansion and allowing yourself to experience things and not just be a human doing. Another frustration that I feel that is happening and I see in businesses, this is going to be mostly an emotional, not necessarily a get down and do the dirty work episode, but managing and integrating and communicating with your coworkers, with your employees, with your contractors. So maintaining a mental and emotional well-being. Well, that flows from the top, my friend. So if you are the parent, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being needs to happen. Yes, I know there are short summers. I am very well aware that time does go quickly. My kiddo is 30. Okay, so I know that time goes very quickly, but I also know that we help them, our kids, our employees, our coworkers, by tending to ourselves, by being the example of what mental and emotional well-being looks like, being able to ask for help, being able to take a time out, being clear that, yeah, absolutely, decompression days are allowed. You use your PTO however you want to use your PTO. So that being an example of that speaks louder than someone who says, go ahead and do this, but doesn't do it for themselves. The other thing with that, with families, I have worked with many a parent whose kids were 16, 17, starting to think about college or going out into the workforce or joining the military or something like that. And the parents are having a major identity crisis because they made their whole life about their kids. That does not serve your kids. It does not serve you. So where can you contribute to your own mental and emotional well-being? I used to take breaks for my kid, and I was very clear with them that I am taking this by myself because I come back to you a better parent. I come back to you wanting to parent, because otherwise, I am just not going to be able to be there. And I know that there's this idea that you're supposed to give everything for your kids and then you'll have your life. And I just do not believe that. And I have seen it crash and burn, absolutely crash and burn, because we're not raising kids, we're raising adults. And then they become super entitled and not able to be out in the world because we became rather codependent, actually. So maintaining your mental, emotional well-being means, what are your interests? What do you do that's not kid related, that's not taking care of your aging parents, that's not making sure all your siblings are okay? These are GAFAs, grown as adults. They do not need you to take care of them unless there is an infirmity there, unless there is absolutely a need. Most people don't. And if you're in the place where you're putting off your emotional and your mental well-being, your happiness, your joyfulness, you're actually not serving other people. That's very self-serving. So if you have that people pleaser thing going on, take a few moments, assess it, and figure out, where could you add some joy into your own life and do things for yourself. Carve out a space in your home for you that is no admittance. I don't actually understand people who think that their kids won't get that. Kids go to school, talk to their teachers. There are boundaries all day long, and the kids are fine. And I know from my own experience, I taught Kayla, my daughter, how to take personal timeouts, because I would say, I'm in mommy timeout when I was at that place where I was going to lose my stuffing. And I would say, I'm in mommy timeout. And she learned to do that for herself by watching me do that. And it also kept me from yelling, kept me from being frustrated, the theme of this podcast. So where are you, and are you prioritizing some self-care, some talk? Where's your support? Do you go out with friends ever? Like, we need adult conversation. We need to be in conversation with those that aren't in the same work world we are. I recently started volunteering at the horse barn, and I am so excited that my brain is learning. There's a lot. You horse people know a lot. There's a lot that you have to know. And my brain is like firing on all cylinders and bringing that into my work world because I'm excited about it. And I can literally feel my neurons firing and my brain waking up, because although it will impact my work, it's not directly in line with my work. Ironically, I got to it by offering to doing communications for their horses. But I know Spirit led me to that so that I could also discover that I needed to prioritize some of my own self-care. I told you before, I walk my walk. I walk my talk. I walk my walk. I talk my walk. I talk on my walk. Even if I'm walking by myself, I talk. It's important. And when you're seeking that time with self, you get to know self and you get to appreciate yourself a little bit more. The frustration level goes down, and maybe the use of the F word, but I know for some it's an adjective. So what we want to do is take that underlying current of discord out and dissipate it. Just simply dissipate, so that you can be frustrated when you stub your toe, or you can be frustrated when someone doesn't call you back, but you don't take it personally. So maintaining mental and emotional well-being is the only way to lead effectively, because it manages your stress, your cortisol levels go down, you have more efficiency and effectiveness in your work, overall well-being, the feeling within the corporation, the company, the classroom, wherever you are, the doctor's office, the vet's office. You can tell, and people can tell, like customers can tell when you have nailed that, when people in the workplace feel supported and heard and understood. And boy, do retail organizations need to do this a little bit better. And then for the last one for this episode, some of the frustration in all of life, this is not simply in business or anything like that, but is dealing with uncertainty and change. And the guarantee of being human is you will experience change every day. You will hopefully change your underwear. You will change the people that you're talking to. Your friend groups will change. Maybe you change the way you eat. Maybe you change the way you move your body. Maybe you change partners because that person would not maintain their mental and emotional well-being and they were looking for you to do it. I don't know who that message is for, but you're welcome. Dealing with uncertainty and change is a key cause of frustration and stress and I was going to say uncertainty. Of course, it's the key to uncertainty. I just said it was about uncertainty. But it really does lead to short-circuiting is what I was trying to say there. But when you do these other things, when you integrate your whole life, you understand that your brain needs some breaks and not just vegging in front of the TV, which go for it occasionally, but not as a go-to method. Maintaining mental and emotional well-being, you will navigate uncertainty and change with more excitement rather than apprehension and rather than temper or miscommunication, because you learn to transition from situation to situation. And if you don't like change and uncertainty, you should not own a business. Go work for someone. If you cannot handle the fact that it is going to morph, change, be unpredictable at times, and have situations coming up that you have to problem solve, you are not a business owner, my friend. And that's great. Know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. If you can get good with change, you can get excited about it. But if that seems like, no, I don't like that, then please don't think that your side hustle needs to become a full-time gig or that you'd be better off working for yourself because of the fallacy that you've been fed that it's easy and oh so flexible. It can be done right. Come see me. I'll help you with that. But there's going to be change in everything. And it's one of those things in your whole of life, if you get used to, you will have less apprehension, anxiety, and stress. So most of all, you'll have less frustration because, again, frustration is when you're fighting against your own brilliance. And if you don't have that frustration as a go-to experience, you won't get in the way of your brilliance. And wouldn't that be amazing? So yes, it's the other F word, but just like the other F word that I'm not going to say because then I have to categorize this podcast as having explicit language. It can be fun to say too. So frustration shifting and becoming a fabulous support of your own brilliance, that's what we're looking for. So take these, incorporate maybe one at a time. Don't go looking for all of them because you will overwhelm your circuitry and then you'll be frustrated that you weren't able to follow through. Ooh, there's another F. So thank you very much. I appreciate you being here and look for me on the lives on social media. We can have further discussion about this and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to VickiBaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.